What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 5 best Void Gauntlet builds in New World Aeternum that are optimized for both PvE and PvP. Also, as I will cover a lot of builds, so not to spend too much time, for each setup I will give you a quick overview of its playstyle. Then as well I will explain the best skill tree setup, then what gear should you wear, then even how many attributes should you allocate for each stat and much more. So, moving over to the first build, which is the musket and Void Gauntlet. This setup's main focus is on melting down enemies with a lot of HP, as you will be doing crazy amount of damage, especially against bosses. A lot of players really like this build because they can stay at range while doing incredible amount of burst damage. And if an enemy or mob ever wants to reach you, then you will just melt him in few seconds. So let's take a look at the build. For our gear choice, we will go with the light armor, as this will give us the maximum amount of damage, while also giving us 2 dodge rolls that we can use to catch or escape an enemy. As our main playstyle revolves around damage from the range, so definitely recommend to go with 1 medium armor and then the rest light equipment. Next we have the attributes, and we should get 300 dexterity, then from 250 to 300 intelligence, and then also 25 in focus and 50 constitution. Since this build always wants to be at max range, so we are mainly concerned with damage over survivability. However, you can go even with more extreme and sacrifice all of the constitution for even more DPS. I definitely don't recommend it, but it's an option as well. Then next up we have the skill tree, and this is how it should look like for the musket. These nodes and the overall layout is structured around increasing damage over time, while also increasing our headshot and overall DPS by more than 2 times. And then again, this is how it should look like for the Void Gauntlet. So this setup is made around removing and buffing the musket's weaknesses, which are locking down your targets and armor penetration. So this is where the Void Gauntlet comes in very handy. If you're interested in the best gear, perks, consumables and everything else, then keep watching until the end of the video. Overall, if you're looking for amazingly fun and high DPS ranged build, then here you go. Next up we have the best healer build in the game, which is the Life Staff and the Void Gauntlet. So, Life Staff is the primary healing weapon in the game, and we can decide to pair it up with the Void Gauntlet, because of its ability to give us very strong debuffs and healing support. Since this build is designed for group PvE and PvP, so all of the healing abilities are focused around AoE healing, and making sure that we can keep as many of our allies healed as possible. And the best part about this is that not only we will get insane amount of healing done, but also we'll be able to dish out some serious damage. So let's take a look at the build. For our gear choice, we will go with the medium armor, as this will give us pretty good healing, while at the same time giving us survivability, in case we get in trouble. I personally think that if a healer dies, then it's GG, game over. So to prevent that, I'm fine with trading small amount of heals, for much higher chance of survival. Then next we have the attributes, and we want to get 150 intelligence, then from 350 to 400 focus, and 100 constitution. This particular point allocation is structured around increasing our healing as much as possible, while relatively doing quite a lot of damage, and having bunch of defensives to survive hard fights, no matter if it's for PvE or PvP. And then finally we have our skill tree. So let's take a look at the most important skill tree setup for the Life Staff, and this is what we have. Our setup is built around AoE healing and increasing its bonuses, and reducing mana cost as much as possible. Also, as we are using the best healing spells, so we will get both low and medium cooldown skills, so then we can use them for any scenario that we might find ourselves into. And then again, this is how it should look like for the Void Gauntlet, and this is the weapon that we will mainly use for DPS. So we focus more on healing and increasing not only ours but our team's damage as well. If you're interested in the best gear, perks, consumables and everything else, then keep watching until the end of the video. So overall, if you're looking for hands down the best and most powerful healer build, then this is it. Then for the next build we have the Ice and Void Gauntlet. This crit damage based build is super powerful counter to any melee fighter, no matter if a player or a mob. The Void Gauntlet has powerful damage skills and can pump out a lot of self-healing just by being aggressive, while also taking advantage of both the ranged and melee potential by using powerful CC abilities from the Ice Gauntlet. You can play this setup in any armor weight of your choice, however I prefer to go with the medium armor, as this gives me more safety and the option to stay closer to my enemies. Next we have the attributes, and we should get 400 intelligence, then 200 constitution, and then put the rest of your points to reach 25 in strength, 25 in dexterity and 25 in focus. So I found that going deep into constitution and using medium armor gave me both insane damage and really good survivability for both PvP and super hard endgame PvE. And then finally we have our skill tree. So let's take a look at the Void Gauntlet. And as I mentioned at the start, this setup is heavy focused on crowd control and self-sustain, so we could easily lock down the enemy and burst him down. And then this is how it should look like for the Ice Gauntlet. As Void is the CC oriented, so with the Ice Gauntlet we can fully maximize our single and AoE damage. Overall, if you're looking for a very fun and OP build that not many players use, but which is extremely high CC and damage, then this is the one for you. Next up we have the Great Axe with the Void Gauntlet. This is mainly a PvP build that uses Great Axe for mobility and melee damage, while having Void Gauntlet for the incredible buffs and crowd control, to lock down any enemy that tries to run away. What I like most about this setup is that we get self-healing as a melee player, so to be honest, it's pretty hard to kill us, and if anyone tries, then we will destroy him in few seconds. So let's take a look at the build. For our gear choice, we will go with the medium armor, as this will give us the perfect balance between survivability and damage. This is one of those builds that can only go medium, as light or heavy reduces too much damage or too much defense. As far as our attributes go, we want to get 400 intelligence, 200 constitution, and then put the rest of your leftover points into strength, dexterity and focus. As the Great Axe is a strength focused weapon, so we will want to use the Abyssal Gem to convert the intelligence damage to the Great Axe as well. And then finally we have our skill tree. So let's take a look at the Void Gauntlet. This setup is pretty similar to the previous builds, just with one or two passive changes. Well, this is how it should look like for the Great Axe. So we build this weapon around increasing as much AoE damage and mobility as possible. If you're looking for a fun off-meta build, which is very strong in PvP, then here you go. And then for the last and final one, we have the Fire Staff with the Void Gauntlet. Both of these weapons are extremely powerful in combination, which will give you the offensive firepower of the Fire Staff with the fantastic utility of the Void Gauntlet. The issue though is that this weapon combination has a mana problem, although if you build the setup right, then you will be debuffing and bursting enemy players down in just few seconds. So as far as our gear goes, we want to stay in the light category, as this is a mainly a ranged build that prioritizes maximizing damage over survivability. Then for the attributes we want to go with 500 intelligence, then 100 constitution, and then put the rest of your points into reaching 25 in focus, 25 in dexterity and 25 in strength. Going past 500 intelligence is just simply not worth it, so we don't really have any other option besides getting some constitution and cooldown reduction. Then next we have our skill tree, and this is how it should look like for the Void Gauntlet. So as our Fire Staff doesn't really have any defenses, so we focus this setup on crowd control and using self-healing to survive hard fights, although we should always be behind our teammates. And then again, this is how it should look like for the Fire Staff, so we mainly build as high fire damage and cooldown reduction as possible. And then for the last and final part, let's take a look at the best gear, buffs and consumables that pretty much all builds could use. And remember that this is just an example. So as far as armor goes, of course slowly but shortly, you want to get to 725 gear score. And no matter if you choose medium or light armor, always use the opal gem on your gear. And if you can, then try to get these perks like the health, refreshing and freedom. Then as far as your weapons go, use the diamond gem on all of your weapons besides the Great Axe. As for him, we want to equip the Abyssal Gem to convert his strength damage to intelligence. And then for weapon perks, try to get keen, vicious and refreshing move. And last but not least, for your heart rune, always go with the stalwart heart rune of the Firestorm. And for your consumables, you should already know what to do, so use honing stones for damage increase, use intelligence food for plus 40 attribute stats, and don't forget about healing and regen potions, just in case if you get in trouble, and that's about it. So if you enjoyed this video, click like, subscribe and comment. If you're interested in more content, then check out my channel, and I will see you in the next one. So take it easy, peace.